7. And McCarron goes down the field, and it's caught and breathes in for the touchdown.
Two things that like that suck. Depth, tackle, 85 will always good.
Welcome to New Stripe City, a podcast for diehard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie, and today is episode 19, entitled, We're On to Miami. And in today's episode, I'll recap our recent loss against the Denver Broncos, as well as our upcoming matchup against the Miami Dolphins. So, I have a couple announcements as usual. You know that you guys can find New Stripe City on your local podcast network. All you have to do is look for us on there. We're on iTunes. We're also coming to other networks as well. We're looking at several. Blog Talk Radio is definitely going to be one of them. We're also looking at some other venues as well. Other than that, you guys know to find us at newstripecity.blogspot.com. Other than that, there aren't any real major announcements. I really just want to dive right into this last loss. So we'll go ahead and start our segment, Bengals Real Talk. And today I just wanted to touch on the game. There are a lot of emotions going around with different fans. Of course, we were all frustrated with the performance yesterday, but I just want to, take and give my analysis of the game as I usually do. So, looking at yesterday's game, I think that the Bengals did some good things in several departments. The running game, I think that Jeremy Hill definitely was involved earlier. We definitely got to see those I formations that we wanted to see. And we definitely made a commitment to the run, which we haven't done so far this season. So it was good to see that the running game had some life breathed back into it. Jeremy Hill played good, like I said before, and we got to see Hewitt in as well. So I think that was one of the good things to take away from this game. I also would say the pass protection. Now, we did give up, I believe, 2 sacks. One was to Von Miller, but it really was in garbage time. I think we did a great job on Von Miller. Von Miller was definitely limited in this game. He did get the sack, but other than that, he really didn't have an impact on this game. So, with the good being taken away, let's get into the bad. Obviously, the pass defense is not looking like how it did last year. Pac-Man Jones was beat on a couple of plays. For some reason, they decided to put Chris Lewis-Harris in on a 3rd down and line him up across from Demaryius Thomas. There were dropped interceptions. The defense just didn't play its part in this game, in my opinion. I think we also saw that the continued trend of the underperformance of players opposite A.J. Green has continued. I mean, there's no other viable target other than him on offense, and that has to change. That was exposed. That was one of my big fears coming into this game. That's why I was cautiously optimistic. That's why I was saying what I did last week. The Bengals also kind of backed down without even trying to attempt to open up the pass game. I respect Denver, and they are the best secondary in the NFL, but you have to at least take chances, and they didn't do that. Some of the other negatives were that there was no sense of urgency in this game. I really didn't see it much once the Broncos got up by several scores. It just didn't seem like the Bengals were trying to take care of business at home. This was a tough game to go into, but what I will say is there's a lot of people trying to say that the Bengals aren't going to do anything. I mean, it's only been 3 games, and honestly, the start of our schedule was pretty difficult to begin with anyway, and we're losing to the Super Bowl champions. I mean, it's not like they won last year strictly based off of their offense. Trevor Siemian, we made him look like a Pro Bowler, but he's a pretty good quarterback. I'm not going to take anything away from him. He made some great throws. These were things that I heard about him from his actual college coach earlier in the season. So Siemian definitely proved that he's capable and more than capable of making those throws and leading this Broncos team to the promised land. Another good thing that I left out was that we did a great job against C.J. Anderson. We were the first team to shut him down this year. There was definitely a full on-board effort to stopping the run, which I agree, that was definitely a key focus for us to stop them. However, just letting them have whatever they wanted in the passing game was not. So I wasn't surprised that we lost this game. I was a little bit upset with some of the ways that went into us losing this game, but other than that, I mean, just looking at the rest of the season, the rest of the schedule, there's no need to panic. And it really made me analyze the situation. Now, of course, we knew that the Bengals lost Hugh Jackson. Of course, we know that they lost key pieces like Marvin Jones, Mohamed Sanu, if you really want to say he was a key piece. But to me, it's deeper than that. You peel back the surface after those guys, you forget about the secondary coach that we lost. That's defensive coordinator in Miami. You forget about the other secondary coach that we had that came to us from the Jets. So those were other position coaches that we lost. We also lost our defensive line coach. So there was a lot of turnover in our coaching staff as well as our team. We lost guys like Reggie Nelson. We lost guys like some of the guys that I mentioned earlier, but those guys were key guys, and I think that the staff that we had in place were key pieces to the staff. I mean, Vance Joseph was a great coach, and he was our secondary coach, and you can kind of tell that the secondary isn't as technically sound as they were with him in place, so that's another issue. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, you've got rookie coaches, so you've got a rookie offensive coordinator, even though he has some familiarity with Andy Dalton and with our offense. You have a rookie secondary coach, a rookie quarterback coach. You also have a rookie defensive line coach. And when I say rookie, I just mean brand new. We all know that these guys were established in other places, but they're brand new to our guys. And not only do we have that, but we also have new personnel that were mismatching in and have never played in this offense before. So you're really at a point where a lot of different guys are learning. So you have coaches learning, but then you also have players learning, and you have them trying to develop chemistry and get comfortable with their roles, and you're trying to do this at a rapid pace. And I mean, honestly, the result of that is what we've seen. And when you're missing two guys that are key, like a Tyler Eifert, who, I mean, it's no secret, he was a red zone weapon last year. And he was a guy that allowed AJ to be freed up on the other side and not be keyed in on. When you're missing a guy like Eifert, when you're missing a guy like Vontaze Burfict, who is the heart of that defense, it's going to impact you. And to be honest, Vontaze Burfict, to me, is the best linebacker in coverage. There were interceptions that were dropped, like the Vincent Ray interception. There's no way that Vontaze Burfict drops that interception. And not only is Vontaze a great player, but he's also a defensive genius. So he's an extension of Paul Gunther's coaching on the field. So he can tell guys where to line up at. We had a guy like Sean Williams. This is his first year starting. He's not as familiar with Pac-Man. He's not as familiar with George Iloka. So there's a lot of new chemistry that's developing out there, and there's gonna be some learning curves, and there's gonna be some growing pains. So I think that we definitely have to be patient with this team, but I still feel like we have a great shot of making the postseason. Luckily, yesterday the Steelers lost, the Browns also lost, but the Ravens won. So as far as our division, that's still intact. We're still one game back from Pittsburgh. So we need to key in and focus on this next row of games because we do have the Dolphins coming in, and I do think that this is a game that we should be able to win because the Dolphins are in a similar situation. They're going and inputting in new personnel. They've got new coaching, a new coaching staff, new coaches, player position coaches. Vance Joseph is over there now, so they're going through a little bit of a transition too. So it'll be interesting to see how we match up against them. But I think that this is a very winnable game, and I think that if the Bengals struggle in this game, then it is time to kind of step back and look at this entire situation and wonder what the future will hold. But I think as of now, it's not a time to panic. Just like Pac-Man Jones said, it's not a time to panic. I mean, I was myself, I was a little let down just because I felt like this team needed to prove to themselves that they were AFC contenders. I still think that they are, but this is definitely making it so that they are able to earn that this year and prove to everyone else that despite all of the changeover and the turnover, that they still will be able to return to a dominant team. And they're a great team. They're talented. They just have to put it all together. So I think that starts here at Miami. Now we have another string of games after that are somewhat easy, but we also do have the Patriots, and I believe that is Tom Brady's first game back. So that's gonna. I mean, honestly, I thought that was kind of a. When I looked at the schedule, I kind of thought of that as a loss. So I'm not gonna be surprised if that happens, but we'll see. That could be a game where the Bengals kind of turn it around and prove that they are an AFC contender. So there's certain games that are statement games, and I think that people are looking at those statement games and looking at how we play in them because, I mean, just being honest, the Bengals haven't played the best run of 3 games, but they still were able to go on the road in New York, pull out a pretty good win. So, I mean, we're 1-2, but we've had seasons where we started out slow like this, and I believe there was one season where we ran, I believe it was 10 straight wins. So I'm not worried about this team. They'll do what they need to do. They'll show the mental fortitude to do what they usually do every year and bounce back. I mean, that's part of the NFL. You're going to have seasons where you jump out the gate like 8-0, and then you're going to have seasons where you have to battle back and become a playoff team. And it doesn't matter how you get there. It's just get there. And when you get there, win. So, I mean, that's all I really care about. I'm worried about us getting into that postseason and taking that next step to make a run. So, I think right now, with Miami upcoming, I believe that this is going to be a game that Tyler Eifert will get back in. Tyler Eifert is a very key part to this offense. You're talking about a guy that will give Gronkowski a run for his money. And I'm not saying that just because I'm a Bengals fan. This guy's numbers last year were off the charts, and he saw nowhere near as many targets as a Gronkowski. They play in 2 totally different offenses, so it's hard to kind of compare the two. But this guy, I mean, there's always, with the tight end position, there's always a guy that's dominant for about 4 to 5 years. In my opinion, and I mean everyone's opinions differ, it started out with Tony Gonzalez, right? Tony Gonzalez was the guy, and then Antonio Gates came in and he kind of passed the torch to Antonio Gates, and Antonio Gates took up the mound, and then there was the whole Gronk era where Gronk came in and he took it from Antonio Gates, and then him and Jimmy Graham played with it a little bit, and then Gronk took it back. And right now it's been Gronk, but I think Tyler Eifert is that next guy that can challenge Gronk for the top position as far as the top tight end in the NFL. So once this guy gets back, you're talking about a guy that's coming back into an offense where last year he technically was the second weapon in the offense, but now he's really the second weapon in the offense. So his volume is definitely going to go up. I mean, you saw what kind of red zone weapon he was last year. He's a guy that's going to free up this offense. It's almost like A.J. Green is the gas, Tyler Eifert is the engine, and Andy Dalton is the keys to this offense. So I think once you get all of those parts together, the Bengals will be rolling. I mean, this is a guy that can really open up a lot of other guys in this offense. We've been looking to see guys like James Wright, Tyler Boyd, and Brandon LaFell come to the forefront. And I think once the offenses start to key in on Eifert and AJ, they'll not only help out each other and feed off of those guys, but they'll also help out the other parts of this offense. Guys like Giovanni Bernard too. So I think once Eifert gets back, we'll definitely see this offense get back on track, and I think that it happens against Miami. Now looking ahead towards Miami, it looks like Arian Foster is going to be out. This is a team that had a very close game that came down to the last minute against the Cleveland Browns. They're not really. It's hard to say because the Dolphins are a team that always look pretty decent on paper, but they never match up to that on the field. But they do have some talented players. Last week I told you guys that Emmanuel Sanders was a guy to look out for. You guys can see why I said that. So I would say this week Jarvis Landry is a very talented guy. And he's a guy that I think will give us problems. Now, this is, as of Monday, he hasn't practiced. So we'll see. We'll have to see what the reports look like on Tuesday and Wednesday. But Jarvis Landry is a guy that they're going to have to key in on. That's going to be a key matchup because they will give him the ball. They hurdle him or they hurl targets at him. He's very talented. He's a very great route runner. He has solid hands. He's a threat in the red zone. He's a possession receiver. I mean, the guy can pretty much do it all. So Jarvis Landry, I definitely keep our eyes on that guy. This is an offense that tends to throw the ball a lot. So they also have Jordan Cameron that's actually going to be out with a concussion. So that's huge for us. But they also have a backup tight end, I believe. He's pretty decent, but he's not much of a threat. But the way that teams have been attacking us with random tight ends, we need to keep an eye on him too. But then they also have the guy that I'm really concerned about, which is Devontae Parker. Devontae Parker, to me, is almost like a poor man's A.J. Green, like I stated earlier. So he's a guy to keep up with, too, as well. He's gotten a ton of targets in their first game. He still scored in the red zone in their second game. So definitely a guy to keep your eye on. As far as on defense, like I mentioned before, they're a little aged on defense, but they do have talent. So that's an area where we can look to try to expose them. I mean, Terrell Pryor is coming off a monster game against them, so I think that A.J. Green will definitely have his opportunities against this team. I think if Tyler Eifert plays, he'll definitely have his opportunities. I'm unaware of how the Bengals are really going to play Tyler Eifert. It's rumored that he will possibly be on a snap count, but I mean, I think that you have to get this guy as many snaps as it takes to win without ensuring any damage on the ankle. I understand that it's only week 4, but to me, this has to be a game where Eifert's presence is felt because to me, if you put Tyler Eifert in there on a snap count and you have A.J. Green in the game, and you don't have him on the field, they're just going to double A.J. Green anyway. So you're going to have to play Tyler Eifert on key downs. Now, whether you guys want to play him on running downs or rushing downs, that I totally understand. But he's definitely going to have to be in there for passing plays for sure if it was me coming with a game plan. But we look at Miami, and they're a team that is still, in a sense, trying to find themselves. So they've got some running backs with Jay Ajayi. He's okay. He's more of a bruiser kind of guy. I'm not really too impressed. I don't really think that he will be too much of a threat, but they also have a guy by the name of Kenyon Drake, who's a rookie that is pretty explosive. So I think that we can contain their running game, but we need to focus on their passing game because that's what in my opinion is going to be the threat in this game. Now you've got a guy like Ryan Tannehill coming in. To me, Tannehill is actually a pretty solid quarterback. Some people might not agree with me when I say that, but he's not the worst quarterback in the world. I mean, he's coming off a pretty decent game against the Browns. I mean, it is the Browns, but he's not Brian Hoyer. Let's just put it like that. So he's a guy that can make plays. So I look for this defense to be able to establish themselves, especially with Vontaze Burfict coming back. I think that the run defense, even though it was great last game, is going to look even better. And I also think the pass defense is going to be better as well because Vontaze will be lurking back there to make a couple of interceptions and make some of those plays that we've all been accustomed to. So with that being said, I think that the Bengals will get out of here this week with a victory. I think it's much needed. I'm glad that they're playing on a short week because they can get right past this game that we just lost against the Broncos and focused on what's more important at hand and not really dwell on the loss that we just recently gained. So I think that that's where it's going to be, and I'm going to say that this game I kind of see ending up being somewhat of a statement game for the Bengals. So I see us taking this one, if Eifert plays, 28-14. I think that it's going to be a welcome home party for Eifert. I think AJ is definitely going to get on the board with a class act. The guy comes out and puts the loss against Denver on his shoulders. I mean, what more could you ask for? You got guys out there like Odell Beckham, which, I respect Odell Beckham. I respect his talent, but his attitude is just ridiculous. And you have a guy like AJ Green who could act like that, who could be a diva because he's just as talented, but he doesn't. So, kudos and hats off to AJ Green, holding himself accountable, holding his offense accountable. I believe that he could definitely be in for a big game against Miami. I think Andy Dalton will also be in for a big game against Miami. They didn't want to pass last game, but I think that they will establish that this week and going forward. So, with that being said, man, make sure you guys leave me some comments in the comment area. For some reason, last week when I was trying to respond to you guys, the comments on my page weren't working, so I'll make sure that I get in there and figure out why exactly that was happening. But I'll make sure that I respond to you guys. Let me know your thoughts. But I will say, Houday Nation, don't give up. Don't get upset. This team is still destined for great things, and we have to stand behind them. And I have completely, utterly faith in this team that they will bounce back. It's like I said, it's only week 3, so we'll see what happens in this upcoming matchup. And like I said, make sure you leave us a review, make sure you like us, and we will see you next time. I think one thing that I will try to do coming up, and I tried to actually do it this past weekend, was give you guys a recap at halftime via Facebook Live. So I recorded a video last time, but the audio didn't work, so stay on the lookout for that. So when the games happen, I'll come to you guys at halftime, and then when the game concludes, I will come and post another Facebook Live with the post-game speech. I was a little bit upset yesterday afternoon, so I didn't get to post one, but I will post them going forward, so stay tuned for that. And if you don't know our Facebook, it's New Stripe City on Facebook. But with that being said, I'm giving you guys a Houday all day, every day, and especially on Thursday. Let's get it.